I remember the exact moment my life shattered. There I was in a 5 by 10 storage unit surrounded by cold concrete walls that smelled faintly of cigarettes and mildew. My stomach growled as I heated a can of beans on a tiny camping stove I bought at a pawn shop. $50,000 in cash sat in front of me, next to a briefcase that smelled of leather and secrets, and in my hands was a note that would flip my entire world upside down. My name is Roger Hendress, and 6 months ago I had it all, or so I thought. A beautiful wife, 2 kids, a steady job at the lumber mill, a life most men would kill for. Now? Now I was sleeping on a cot, surrounded by concrete, my dignity shredded, my trust betrayed, and my sense of reality fractured. That briefcase, it was the key to everything I never knew about my life, my father's death, my wife's betrayal, and the man who orchestrated it all, someone I never suspected. This isn't a story about revenge. This isn't a story about failure. This is a story about truth. A truth so deep, so twisted, it takes decades to uncover. You want to know how a man goes from Sunday dinners with his family to eating beans in a storage unit? How someone loses his wife to his boss, his kids to lies, his entire sense of self to a world that seems to enjoy kicking you when you're already down? Let me tell you how it happened. Melanie, my wife, always warned me. Roger, she'd say, stirring her coffee in our kitchen, you think everyone's as honest as you are. That's going to bite you someday. Funny, isn't it, how the person warning you about snakes can sometimes be the one hiding fangs? Vance Cromwell. More than just my boss, he was the owner of Cromwell Lumber Industries, the largest employer in Millbrook, Pennsylvania. His father built an empire. Vance inherited it, along with a taste for power, expensive suits, and other men's wives. Yes, I worked there for 18 years, managing 40 men, keeping the place running while Vance played golf and counted profits he didn't earn. I loved my work, I loved my family, and I thought I could trust the people around me. I was wrong. My son, Tommy, 14 years old, already taller than me, had just made varsity football. My daughter, Grace, 11, smarter than both her parents combined, or so I thought. It turns out she had one parent and one actress playing a role for money, a deception that would unravel the very foundation of my life. Rock bottom has a funny way of exposing what's been hidden all along. Sometimes it's a crazy uncle who left you more than money, a clue to the truth about your father's death and the people who manipulated your life from the shadows. That briefcase I found, my Uncle Floyd put it there. A Vietnam vet, a recluse, a man the world called paranoid and insane. But he was right. Always right. The storage unit still smelled like the ghosts of its previous renters as I opened that leather case. February in Pennsylvania, heating beans on a stove that cost less than my wedding ring did. A ring I'd sold for $40. $40 for a piece of metal that once represented love, trust, and the life I thought I had. The note inside wasn't just a note. It was a revelation. It said everything I needed to know, but could never imagine. My father's death wasn't an accident. My life had been manipulated, and the man who destroyed me had been weaving a web for decades. The coordinates inside the note led to somewhere in Montana, 1,000 miles from the home I had lost, from the wife who betrayed me, from the boss who thought he could break me. And I realized something profound. The old Roger Hendress, the trusting fool who believed in love, loyalty, and hard work, died that day, holding $50,000 in a letter that exposed a lifetime of lies. I'm 42 now. 6 months ago, I was nobody special, just a supervisor at a lumber mill, covered in sawdust, living an honest life. Today, I'm a man carrying the weight of truths too heavy for most to bear, about a storage unit in Pennsylvania, a cabin in Montana, and $8 million I never knew existed. This is a story about how the worst day of your life can sometimes lead to your salvation if you have the courage to follow a dead man's map and the tenacity to believe that justice, no matter how delayed, can still arrive. Millbrook, Pennsylvania, population 12,000, built around the lumber mill like a body around its spine. You could set your watch by the mill whistle, and most did. I grew up hearing it as a kid, swept sawdust as a teenager, and finally managed the entire floor as a man. 18 years I devoted to Cromwell Lumber, climbing from loading trucks at 24 to supervisor by 35. Sawdust never truly leaves your clothes, but I wore it like a badge of honor. It smelled like honest work, and Melanie loved that about me. Melanie Driscoll, captain of the cheerleading squad, honey blonde hair, eyes that could make you forget your own name. Back in high school, she told me she wanted a simple life. She wanted someone who knew real work. And I, the kid with a beat up Chevy, thought I was giving her just that. We married straight out of graduation, our wedding reception at the VFW Hall. My Uncle Floyd gave a strange toast about wolves in sheep's clothing, and everyone laughed. No one took it seriously. Our home on Maple Street wasn't much. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen in desperate need of updating, but it was ours. The kitchen painted yellow to catch the morning sun, a decision Melanie made that now feels like a memory from another lifetime. Tommy came along 2 years later, Grace 3 years after that. I watched them grow, proud, innocent, unaware of the forces conspiring against our family. Cromwell Lumber changed everything the day Vance's father passed. Vance took the reins, showed up twice a week, and left me to handle the real work. But his gaze lingered too long on Melanie during company picnics. I should have seen the signs. I should have known the quiet betrayal that would unravel my life. Uncle Floyd lived 3 hours north in a cabin built with his own hands, a man shaped by war and grief. "They killed your daddy, Roger," he said over beers, his eyes sharp and knowing. "Made it look like an accident. But I know better." My mother would shush him. He became more isolated as I grew older, more eccentric. The last time I saw him alive, he handed me a key. "For when you need it most," he said. He didn't explain. He didn't have to. Melanie's transformation was gradual. New clothes, complaints about the house, subtle manipulations suggesting I push harder at work. "Vance says there's opportunity for advancement," she'd mentioned casually, planting seeds of ambition and desire that weren't mine. I thought she was helping. Now I know she was preparing for a plan decades in the making. A con I was born into without knowing it. The Thursday it all began, I felt a sickness unlike any I had experienced. Sweat poured through my shirt. My foreman Pete noticed. "Go home before you infect the whole crew," he said. I rarely took sick days, but my stomach churned, my head spun. I climbed into my truck, longing only for my bed, oblivious that this was the day my life's course would be irreversibly altered. Every detail now comes into focus, like a movie reel spinning too fast to stop. The betrayal of my wife, the manipulations of my boss, the warnings of a man the world labeled crazy. They all converge here, in this storage unit, in this briefcase, in the cold February air of Pennsylvania. I hold the evidence of a lifetime of lies. And ahead of me, 1,000 miles to Montana, lies the truth my uncle spent 40 years gathering. The truth about my father's death. The truth about my family. The truth about the man who orchestrated it all. I'll tell you this, discovering the truth is never clean. It never comes wrapped in a neat bow. It's raw. It's brutal. It makes you question everything you thought you knew, every choice you made, every person you trusted. And yet, it's liberating. Because once you see the strings, once you understand the web, you can begin to untangle it. And so I set out, leaving Millbrook behind, leaving the ruins of the life I once had. I follow the map my uncle left. Every mile is a reminder of what I've lost. Every step brings me closer to a revelation that will shake the foundations of my past, present, and future. The wind on my face, the endless highways, the forests of Montana awaiting me. Every bit of it hums with the promise of uncovering a conspiracy decades in the making. This isn't just a journey of money or revenge. It's a journey of truth, of reckoning, of finally seeing what's been hidden under layers of lies and manipulation. It's the story of how a man can lose everything, wife, children, dignity, his very identity, and still rise, because the key to salvation isn't in holding on to what you've lost, but in discovering what has always been waiting for you to find. I am Roger Hendress, 42 years old, and my old life died in a storage unit that February. The man holding $50,000 and a letter revealing decades of deception is dead. What walks now is a man armed with knowledge, suspicion, and the fire of someone who has seen the puppeteer behind the curtain. And that fire is about to lead me to Montana, to secrets buried in snow-covered forests, to answers that people have spent lifetimes trying to hide. And as I drove away from Millbrook, the sun setting behind the Allegheny Mountains, I realized something. What my Uncle Floyd left me isn't just money or coordinates. It's a path to uncovering a conspiracy so vast it spans decades, to confronting people who built their lives on lies and betrayal, to understanding a truth that could rewrite everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. The road ahead is long, the night's cold, and the answers I seek hidden under layers of time, greed, and deceit. But I've learned something vital. Sometimes to find the light, you first have to walk through the darkness. And this darkness, it's full of shadows that know my name, secrets that waited decades to be revealed, and the kind of truths that could destroy or save everything I hold dear. Montana isn't just a place on a map. It's a promise, a challenge, a reckoning. And when I arrive, I won't just find answers. I'll find the pieces of my life that were stolen before I even knew they existed. And I'll see the world, not as it appeared, but as it truly is beneath the smoke, the mirrors, and the lies. And in that moment, everything will change again. I remember the moment my world shattered with an intensity that still makes my stomach turn. I was driving down Maple Street, counting the distance in my head, fighting not to pull over and throw up, every mile bringing me closer to a truth I wasn't ready to face. And then I saw it. Vance Cromwell's Mercedes parked in my driveway. That sleek silver S-Class that cost more than I made in 2 years, sitting there as casually as if it belonged to my life, except it didn't. Next to it, Melanie's Honda, innocent, unassuming, unaware of the storm I was about to unleash in my mind. For a fleeting moment, I clung to hope. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe an accident at the mill. Maybe Vance came to deliver bad news in person. My hand trembled as I parked on the street and walked to the front door of my own home. And that's when the first chill hit me. The door was locked. Strange. In Millbrook, we never lock doors during the day. I fumbled for the keys, my heart hammering, my mind screaming. Then I heard it. Melanie's laugh. Not the polite laugh, not the one that filled the room when she watched TV or smiled at me across the breakfast table. No, this was different. The laugh that had once been mine alone, that belonged to the life I thought I had. It was coming from upstairs, my bedroom, the place where our lives had been built together, where our children had been conceived, where love was supposed to live. Smart would have been to leave, to pause, to think, maybe call a lawyer first. But smart was gone. Gone the moment I climbed the stairs I had ascended thousands of times before. Past Tommy's school photos, Grace's art projects, our wedding picture on the wall. Past the life I had believed in. The bedroom door was ajar, half open, like the truth was waiting for me to witness it. Vance was there, sitting on my side of the bed, putting on his shoes with the kind of casual arrogance only someone used to taking what they wanted could muster. Melanie was draped in a silk robe I had never seen, speaking to him about Paris, a restaurant with a view of the Eiffel Tower, as if she wasn't destroying a family in the very room where our children's laughter had once echoed. "Hello, Vance," I said, my voice low, trembling with rage and disbelief. For once, he had nothing clever to say. He simply grabbed his jacket and brushed past me, muttering, "We'll discuss this at work tomorrow," as if I were just another employee who had stumbled into a meeting by mistake. Melanie didn't flinch, didn't apologize. She sat at her vanity, the one I had bought her for our 10th anniversary, brushing her hair with methodical calm, like we were talking about the weather, not about the life she had just erased. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" Her answer was cold, precise, surgical, long, steady strokes of her brush. "Grace and Tommy sleep here, Melanie, my children, the home we built." She turned, her face icy, sharper than any winter wind I'd ever felt in Pennsylvania. "Your kids?" she said, incredulous. "Do you really think Tommy wants to be like you, working himself to death for nothing? Grace is already smarter than you'll ever be. They deserve better than this." "Better like Vance," she said. "Vance, who is taking me to Europe next month. Vance, who is buying me a condo downtown. Vance, who is showing me what life can really be. Instead of this." She tightened the silk robe around her like armor, like she was fully aware of the dagger she had just driven through everything I held sacred. "Look at yourself, Roger," she continued. "You're 42. You've peaked. Supervisor at a lumber mill. Is that what you dreamed about as a kid? Is that the legacy you want to leave?" I dreamed of a family. I dreamed of raising good kids with the woman I loved, and the woman I loved never existed. The next morning, I showed up at work like nothing had happened, like the life I had just witnessed in my own home was a dream. But reality has a way of catching up. Vance's assistant called me to the office, and there he was, behind his father's old walnut desk, the desk that had witnessed decades of empire building, a silent testament to power and legacy. "We're making some changes," he said, not even looking up. "Budget cuts. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately." 18 years. 18 years I gave to that mill, working harder than anyone else, keeping 40 men productive, keeping the legacy alive while he took the credit. And in one sentence, it was gone. "You've been adequately compensated," he said with that smug smile I wanted to erase from the world. "Sign the separation agreement. Get 2 weeks' pay. Refuse. Get nothing. Security will escort you out." I signed. What choice did I have? No job meant no lawyer, no leverage, no chance to fight the coming storm. Security walked me past men I had worked alongside for nearly 2 decades. Pete, my crew, they all knew. Everyone in Millbrook would know by dinner. Divorce papers arrived within a week. Melanie had hired the best lawyer across 3 counties. Somehow, she managed the impossible. She wanted the house, the kids, alimony, child support. And I had nothing but the clothes on my back and the remnants of a life that had been stolen. The court was merciless. Judge Harrison, who conveniently had received campaign contributions from Vance, ruled me an unstable influence. My one moment of anger, punching a garage wall, was twisted into evidence of violence and unpredictability. 18 years of steady work, coaching Tommy's little league team, raising Grace with care. It didn't matter. I was reduced to a man unworthy of his own children, and so the storage unit became home. From sleeping in my truck to couch surfing to finally borrowing $89 from my brother-in-law for a climate-controlled unit on Route 30. The night security guard, Carl, an old-timer, pretended not to notice as I stayed past closing. I arranged my possessions like furniture. The camping cot against one wall, my father's tool chest as a table, a battery-powered lantern for light. Plastic bins held my clothes, Planet Fitness showers kept me human, and a camping stove became my kitchen. 3 weeks in, I sorted through boxes Melanie had tossed during the divorce. Most were junk to her, but precious to me. Photo albums, my father's Korean War medals, Christmas ornaments from years of family traditions. And behind the dust of forgotten memories, I found it. A briefcase, wedged like a secret, leather brown, with a combination lock and a luggage tag in Uncle Floyd's shaky handwriting. My name scrawled on it. But Floyd had been dead for 8 months. How did this get here? I tried every combination I could imagine, birthdays, anniversaries, milestones. Nothing. Finally, a screwdriver, a gentle pry, a pop that echoed like a gunshot through the concrete unit. Inside, $50,000 in neat stacks of $100 bills, more cash than I had ever held outside of a bank. But it was the letter that would ignite the path forward. Uncle Floyd's handwriting, yellowed legal paper. "Roger, if you're reading this, you've lost everything. Good. A man can't rebuild until the foundation is clear. This money isn't charity. It isn't pity. It's travel funds for what you need to do next." Coordinates to Montana. A red gate on Timberwolf Road. Walk north 1 mile until a boulder shaped like a bear's head. Behind it, the truth about my father's death. "Your father didn't die in an accident at the mill. Cromwell Sr. murdered him over mineral rights. Rights worth millions, now yours. I've spent 40 years gathering proof, building wealth, waiting for the right moment. My cancer won't allow me to see justice. That's your job." And just like that, everything I knew about my life, my family, my identity was rewritten. The money was enough to get a car, supplies, maybe a lawyer, but the letter was a map to the truth, to the lies Melanie had been part of, to the betrayal that had been decades in the making. I bought a used Ford F-150 for $8,000 cash, packed it with camping gear, food for a week, supplies to survive in the wilderness. I told no one where I was going. Who could I tell? My kids couldn't talk to me. Friends had chosen sides, and the life I had built continued without me. Past the house on Maple Street, one last time, I saw Tommy's bike in the driveway, Grace's window with new curtains, Melanie's car gone, a life unfolding without me as if I had never existed at all. The drive to Montana took 3 long days, highways, gas stops, a few hours of sleep at rest stops. Roads narrowed to gravel, then dirt, then deer tracks. The Timberwolf road sign was rusty, riddled with bullet holes, a place GPS refused to acknowledge. The red gate appeared, more rust than red, chained tight. The key from Floyd fit perfectly. Beyond it, the road vanished. And in that vanishing point, I realized the journey I had begun wasn't just a road through Montana, it was a road into the deepest truths of my life. Secrets, lies, betrayals, and revelations that would test everything I thought I knew about love, family, and justice. The wilderness awaited, and so did the truth. I parked the truck and stepped into a world that felt both alive and dead at the same time. The forest swallowed the sound of my engine almost instantly. Thick trees pressing in on every side, letting only shards of sunlight through, like nature itself was conspiring to hide what I was about to find. My compass app guided me north, step by step, each footfall crunching leaves, snapping twigs, until the battery finally died, and even that small tether to certainty vanished. I was alone now, completely, with nothing but the map my Uncle Floyd had left, the money in my pocket, and a gnawing sense that every step was leading me toward a revelation I wasn't prepared for. Every sound in that forest made me jump. A rustle behind a bush, a snap of a branch, a low growl in the distance. Bears, wolves, maybe something else. Watching, waiting. My heart hammered against my chest as I walked in near silence, counting my steps obsessively, measuring the distance Floyd had written about in his letter. And then I saw it. A boulder, massive, maybe 15 feet tall, its jagged outlines strikingly resembling a grizzly in profile. From the right angle, it looked alive, poised, watching. Behind it, almost invisible under a blanket of overgrown brush, a trail snaked its way through the undergrowth, winding another 100 yards to a cabin that simply shouldn't exist. But it did. And it wasn't a ramshackle, abandoned hideout. This was modern, purpose-built, precise. A cabin with solar panels, a satellite dish, a quiet generator humming somewhere behind a shed. The kind of place where someone could hide for years, unseen, yet fully self-sufficient. I approached cautiously, hand on the steel-reinforced door, inserting another key from Floyd's ring. It slid in perfectly. The door opened with a low groan, revealing an interior that was part living space, part detective's evidence vault. One wall was a collage of photographs, documents, newspaper clippings spanning 40 years. Another wall held filing cabinets, each drawer labeled meticulously, like a museum of secrets. A desk dominated the center of the room, 3 computer monitors humming, connected to surveillance equipment that had to have cost more than my entire lifetime earnings. And there, staring back at me from the first photograph, was my father. Young, smiling, standing beside old man Cromwell at the mill, shaking hands, holding a stack of papers. Beneath it, Floyd's handwriting, Partnership Agreement, 1976, Dad and Cromwell as equal partners. I sank into a chair, letting my eyes scan the documents. The story unfolded piece by piece, each revelation more damning than the last. My father, Daniel Hendris, hadn't merely worked at the mill. He had been Cromwell's equal partner, inheriting mineral rights from my grandfather that, decades later, sat atop one of the largest natural gas deposits in Pennsylvania. Cromwell needed those rights to expand his empire. My father had agreed to a partnership instead of selling out entirely. And then the police reports from 1982. Industrial accident at the mill. Daniel Hendris crushed by a lumber loader. The investigation was absurdly quick, a closed case in less than a week. But Floyd's files told the truth. Maintenance records showing the loader had been serviced just the day before, a life insurance policy taken out on my father by Cromwell months prior, and a witness, now long dead, who had overheard heated arguments about selling the mineral rights. My father hadn't died by accident. He had been murdered. I turned a page and froze. Photographs in a folder marked MD. Melanie, age 16, standing beside Vance Cromwell, who would have been 38 at the time. My stomach sank as I flipped through decades of images, always careful, always at a distance. My wife, my life, every moment a lie. Then a document that stole my breath entirely. A bank account in Melanie's maiden name, opened when she was 17, funded by regular deposits from a Cromwell Industries subsidiary. The recording equipment held dozens of files. I clicked one at random, dated just 3 years ago. Floyd's voice was old but firm, following MD to meeting with VC at Riverside Motel. Then Melanie's voice unmistakable. He's getting suspicious. How much longer do I have to play housewife? And Vance responding, until we can provoke him into something usable in court. We need him discredited, not just divorced. I clicked another file, last year's recording. Melanie again, I've been married to him for 16 years. I've had his children. I've pretended to love him so long, sometimes I forget I'm pretending. The kids are your insurance policy, Vance. He'll never fight hard with them in the middle, and once he's broken, the mineral rights revert to his next of kin. As his grieving widow or ex-wife with full custody, you'll control them until the kids are 18. I sat there, hours slipping by, the cabin fading around me. Pieces of my life were rearranging themselves like a puzzle I'd been staring at upside down my entire existence. Melanie had never loved me. She had been planted, groomed by a man twice her age, trained to destroy me decades later. The financial documents were staggering. My father's mineral rights, refused for principal, were now worth approximately $8 million. Floyd had quietly collected his portion over 40 years, living modestly while building a fortune, each transaction clean, legal, meticulously documented. And there was the legal case, waiting like a loaded weapon. Environmental violations like tax evasion, bribery of officials, including Judge Harrison, the very judge who had ruled against me in my divorce. The evidence was comprehensive, damning, and unstoppable. The final file on the computer, a video message from Floyd recorded just weeks before he died. Skeletal, ravaged by cancer, yet eyes sharp as a hawk. Roger, he said, looking directly into the lens, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. They were always watching. If you're seeing this, you've lost everything, which means they think they've won. But they're not watching anymore. Now you can fight back. The money is yours. Legal, clear. But the evidence, what you do with it, is your choice. You can take the fortune and disappear, or you can finish what your father started. Either way, they lose. 3 days. 3 days I spent in that cabin, memorizing every document, copying every file, understanding the full scope of the Cromwell's crimes. Floyd's choice wasn't really a choice at all. Running with the money meant letting them win, letting my father's murder go unpunished, letting my children grow up thinking their father was a failure. The drive back to Pennsylvania felt different. I wasn't running anymore. I was heading toward justice, armed with evidence and empowered by truth. First stop, the FBI field office in Pittsburgh. Agent Patricia Knowles listened, stoic, to my story. Then she saw the documents. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock. 2 more agents were called in, then her supervisor. The investigation took 4 months. Secret grand juries, forensic accountants combing through 40 years of Cromwell Industries books, federal agents interviewing everyone connected to Vance. And then on a Tuesday morning, justice arrived. Vance Cromwell was arrested at his country club in handcuffs. City councilman, Judge Harrison, the police chief who had closed my father's accident case, all arrested. Charges spanned tax evasion, conspiracy, environmental crimes costing millions. Old man Cromwell's murder couldn't be prosecuted, but the cover-up would not go unpunished. Melanie's arrest came differently. They took her at the elementary school where she was picking up Grace. On the phone from jail, she screamed, "How could you do this to your children?" "Their mother was never real," I said calmly. "You were a fiction, a character groomed since age 16 to destroy me. The kids deserve to know the truth, not the failure you painted me as." For the first time, her performance cracked. The perfect act of love and betrayal shattered. She admitted to receiving payments since high school, all to manipulate me, bear my children, and secure control over the inheritance my father had died protecting. The trial made national news. Headlines screamed, "Small-town lumber dynasty falls in decades-long conspiracy." Vance got 15 years in federal prison, Melanie 5, likely serving 2. Other conspirators fell like dominoes, each testifying to save themselves. The real victory came when I got my children back. Tommy, hesitant, silent, refusing eye contact. Grace, crying, needing reassurance. "Mommy was never really your mother, but I am," I told them, holding them close in the modest living room of our new house. Therapy, patience, understanding rebuilt the fractured bonds of our family. Floyd's money funded a new lumber business, Hendress & Sons, employing loyal men with respect and fair wages. Storage unit, still mine. Paid for, preserved as a reminder. Carl, the old security guard, now my night shift supervisor, reminded me, "Remember where you came from. You'll never lose sight of where you're going." From cold beans in a storage unit to an $8 million inheritance and a thriving business, the transformation was complete. But the real wealth? Tommy's laughter at calculus homework, Grace's beaming smile over science projects, and the quiet knowledge that my father's sacrifice and Floyd's decades of secrecy had finally meant something. Sometimes the worst thing that happens is a gift wrapped in barbed wire. Melanie said I'd die poor and alone. She was wrong. Truth, even when it destroys the world you knew, is freedom. Freedom, I learned in a 5 by 10 storage unit, is worth far more than all the mineral rights in Pennsylvania. My name is Roger Hendris. I was nobody special, just a lumber mill supervisor trying to raise his kids right. But sometimes nobody special is exactly who needs to stand up and fight. Sometimes the ordinary man brings down empires built on lies, betrayal, and murder. And as I drive past the boulder-shaped rock in Montana, the forest still whispering around me, I realize the story isn't over. There are always more layers, more secrets, more truths waiting to be unearthed.